Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons. The Living Wall's horrible Dungeons & Dragons lore. A large pile of treasure is scattered over the flagstone floor by a stone block wall in the passageway. Collecting up the abandoned gear and coins was surprisingly good luck, until a hand reached out of the wall and grabbed your arm. Terror grips you as your flesh is absorbed into the wall and you can't break free. Your regret is drowned out by the din of screams from the souls you are trapped with in this freakish wall of body parts twisted together. One of the most disturbing and appalling monsters from the Ravenloft campaign setting. The living wall appears to be a normal wall of stone, rock and brick, but has a magical illusion masking it. A living wall is actually consisting of grey sinewy flesh with faces, hands, broken bones, feet and toes jutting out from the surface. The living wall can be found in any climate and any environment, but is usually placed or manifests in a cave, a dungeon, or a building made of masonry. The living wall radiates both evil and transmutation magic, if detected by spell casting or a creature's special abilities. Infrared vision and dark vision will not detect any kind of particular or peculiar patterns or reveal the living wall's real nature. Creatures who possess true sight, the true seeing spell, or a gem of true seeing, and forms of magic that can see past a magical illusion presented by a living wall perceive its true nature. The low moans of horror, torment, pain and sorrow issue from the living wall when someone is within 5 yards of the undead nightmare. Voices from the living wall call out, "Help me! Pull me out! Free me!" Even a silent spell can't suppress the living wall's moans and their sounds. Those who die fighting a living wall are absorbed into it. Creatures, characters and monsters captured by the living wall retain all of the abilities they had in life. The intelligence of a living wall can range from bestial cunning to a sage's intelligence. The habitat of a living wall. A living wall can only assimilate corporal creatures like aberrations, animals, dragons, fae, giants, humanoids, magical beasts, monstrous humanoids, outsiders and vermin. The living wall never reproduces offspring, being an undead construct, and always remains active until it has been destroyed. These evil undead constructions and creations don't age or deteriorate due to the constant absorption of flesh, muscle, bone and life force. A living wall has a solitary existence with no society. Usually, living walls are encountered in lairs of malevolent creatures, often serving as part of a torture chamber or to cover the true opening to a secret passageway or corridors. No one knows for sure whether these undead monstrosities are large in size or what size they are limited to, and their longevity, just like how long they last. Living walls as large as 15 feet high, 30 feet long and 15 feet thick have been reported by survivors. A living wall does, however, seem to be limited to one section of wall rather than a whole building or structure. A cemetery or a castle cannot be surrounded by one large living wall, nor can a living wall section spread beyond its designated area. A house with a living wall in its basement will not slowly become a living house. The living wall desires above all else to slay the creature who created it. If the living wall kills its creator, or the creator meets their end within 100 yards of the wall, the corpse of the hated creator is assimilated into the living wall, and the beings trapped in the wall are freed to return to the peace of death. The living wall reverts to being a structure of stone with the corpse of its creator entombed within it. Ecology of the living wall. Chaotic evil mages occasionally create these Frankenstein monoliths But a living wool is a rare occurrence. The exact method for making a living wool is unknown, but several years of preparation and spellcasting are required. A minimum of 3 corpses are necessary for the spell to transform a stone wool into a living wool. A fact known only by 1 or 2 inhabitants of Ravenloft is that living wools also arise as a rare manifestation of Ravenloft's power, as a response to trapped souls in despair and dread. The living wool is born from dark curses and nursed on the bloody massacre of sentient creatures. The seed for such a wool is planted when one sapient creature willfully entombs another in a wool. The harpless victim may be bound and absorbed alive into the rock niche of a windswept mountain trail, or on the sill of a fetid catacombs, or the corner of an asylum, a cave wall, or a mausoleum facade, any kind of stone or brick wall. Once entombed in a living wool, the victim will suffocate, dehydrate, starve in utter darkness and solitude. They don't die straight away. When the victim dies, their life force or soul is trapped within the living wool. In a matter of days, madness corrupts the trapped life force in the living wool, changing it to chaotic evil. At this point, the body of any creature that have died within 100 yards of the wool in the last month rise, and they shamble over to the living wool and meld into it. Even corpses that have been buried will dig their way to the surface and converge upon the living wool. Although the living wool retains its previous appearance, it is no longer stone, but a grey and rotting bulwark of limbs, hands, bones, and twisted faces fused together. Most cultures and good-aligned characters attempt to destroy such unholy living wool creations wherever they can be found. But many of these assaults merely strengthen the wool, with deposits of more corpses and souls. A living wool doesn't require air, food, drink, or sleep. Combat with a living wool. A living wool is fearless in combat, with no regard for its safety or survival. Magically resistant to spells and arcane powers. The living wool has no way to move from its fixed location. Animals, beasts, monsters, humanoids part of the living wool fight any creature that approaches it to the best of its abilities. If a wizard becomes melded with a living wool, their spell-casting powers are retained and can be used to make attacks. The wizard retains any spells that were memorized at the time they were absorbed into the living wool, and these spells are renewed each day. Spellcasters absorbed into a living wool must also have the correct material components to cast the spells that they have memorized, but the components are not consumed by casting the spell from the wool. If a warrior loses his life in combat with a living wool, their fighting skills and weapons come under the control of this beastly wool. A warrior's weapons are hidden within the wool until the living wool attacks intruders. Then the weapons are pushed through the mass of grey flesh to the surface. Hands fused to the living wool attach themselves to any weapon buried inside, and eyes jutting out from the wool guide the attacks of these weapons. If the wool absorbs humanoids with ranged weapons, the weapons become useless once arrows, quills, bolts, and other necessary projectiles have been expended or used. A living wool never initiates combat except against its creator, but they will grab creatures who get too close. When a living wool is attacked, every creature that is part of the living wool returns 1 attack per strike against the living wool. All the creatures in the living wool fight according to their normal attack modes. These living wool attacks can be magical, physical, or mental in origin. The type of attack and damage a living wool has often depended upon who or what is melded into the wool. If the living wool assimilates a paladin or a lawful good priest or a cleric, all their special powers are reversed. Detect evil becomes detect good, Lay on hands will cause harm rather than heal. Magical items absorbed into the living wall grant their magical and spell effects, although items that improve armor are less effective because of the wall's size. Non-magical armor, packs, purses and gear aren't absorbed into the living wall, but the piles of loot are left at the base of the living wall, and they often attract bystanders who become new victims. When a creature is absorbed into the living wall, their full health is added to the living wall's health. Once a creature is fully absorbed into a living wall, they are lost forever, unless a carefully worded wish spell is employed to remove one or more trapped creatures. Spells that allow you to move through walls or stone don't work on a living wall. Cutting through a living wall can be achieved with sharp weapons or tools and blasting magic. However, the living wall will return any attacks or cutting made against it, so it's not such a good idea. The exposed underflesh of a living wall has a stench strong enough to cause nausea, and is also so poisonous that the smell can result in unconsciousness. Living walls are immune to all planar and temporal spells like Time Stop and Plane Shift. Speak with Dead, ESP and similar spells reveal a torrent of tortured minds and voices in a living wall. A spellcaster probing the mind of a living wall learns nothing and can suffer madness from the horror and pain it projects. The publication history of the living wall. The living wall first appeared in the Ravenloft campaign setting in the Book of Crypts in 1991. It was then reprinted in the Monstrous Manual in 1993. It reappeared in the White Wolf, Denizens of Dread in 2004 as an undead creature, and then changed to a construct template in Dragon Magazine number 343, May 2006, as the Elf Living Wall, the Human Living Wall, and the Living Wall Manticore. Now, if you found this video useful, I have a live stream that goes into far more detail on the Living Wall, a true horror in Dungeons and Dragons. If you like what I do, I have hundreds of videos for players and dungeon masters covering every aspect of Dungeons and Dragons and Dungeons and Dragons 5e. If you would like to support the channel so I keep doing video content like this, you can through Patreon, the Amazon affiliate links down in my description, the merchandise shelf underneath all of my videos, or just watch my videos, that's fine. Make sure to do the usual YouTube things like share, like and subscribe, hit the bell button to be notified when I go live and when I publish new videos, and hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.